you got a pair of nines. You just can't let it go.
We'll find out, I guess.
I want to bet 250.
Sitting down with probably the biggest name in poker right now, Persson. A little nervous, to be honest. My last guest didn't talk maybe as much smack as you, so please take it a little bit easy on me here. I have to ask you, starting off, do you think that trash talk is good for poker?
I think that engaging your opponents is like probably one of the most important parts of poker, and I think it's really undervalued by a lot of the younger GTO players who really focus on really getting good at their game, becoming winning players, but then they get stuck at like 10, 20 limits. Like, I'm playing in the biggest cash games in the world, and in order to do that, you have to start thinking about what value do you add to the game, because being a winning player doesn't really add value. In fact, a lot of winning players can't even get in the game. It's like, it's no secret. You know, Patrick and I are really good friends, but he can't play in many of the games I can play in, even though I have positive EV. People want to play with me, and people want to play with me because I'm fun, I'm engaging, and I make the games better.
So speaking of making the games better, you obviously made massive headlines in your heads-up match against Phil. I have a few questions about that, but one, do you actually have beef with Phil Hellmuth, or is that more for show?
The thing is, I've been around Phil Hellmuth for a long time, and I've seen the way he's treated a lot of people who actually were sitting at a tournament table and pretty excited to be sitting next to him, only to be berated. I've seen women cry. I've seen people leave tables because of him. And so while he's never done that to me, he was never going to be able to do that to me. And so it's not that we had a personal beef. It's that I don't really respect the way he talks and treats a lot of other people. And so when he started to do that to me, I'm just a wrong customer.
So during that match, when did you start to realize that you were getting in his head?
Well, what happened is, you know, he started saying things like calling me an amateur, saying I'm no good, blah, 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 how he's just going to beat me quick. What people miss in that whole thing is I was just responding to him. I was responding to his banter. And the thing is, talking is a big part of my game. And so I'm certainly not going to be the person that he pushes around. And so what happened was, I just started taking over. Like, if he wants to talk about it, fine, we're going to talk about it. But it's going to be a one-way conversation. And when I realized it was effective, and it was really getting to him, it was really changing his game, and it was really starting to be a spot where the conversation we were having, even though it was pretty much one-sided, was really affecting the way the cards are being played. And so I just kept pushing it. And because I realized it was effective. And so while I talk a lot, I'm not abusive. If you watch me in high stakes poker, I'm playing with Phil and Patrick and Tom Dwan and Stanley Tang and Krish, and we're just having a great time, you know, at the end of the day. And yeah, there's a lot of conversation going on, but it's not the way it was with Phil. Phil got what he deserved at the end of the day.
If you played Phil again, would you handle it the same way?
It really depends on the way he interacts with me. And I'm going to do whatever I think is the most profitable interactions with him. And so I think that should he start it, I'm definitely going to finish it, yeah.
All right, let's keep it on the conversation of trash talk, but how do you find the right players to trash talk?
Well, at the end of the day, what you're really talking about is how do you find the best way to manipulate your opponents? And sometimes that's through conversation, sometimes that's through alcohol, sometimes that's because they're tired, sometimes that's just because they play too many holdings. So really, you know, the best poker players start to understand what it is that affects their opponents and then manipulate that. So sometimes that's trash talk, and sometimes that's just making sure that everybody has wine. And sometimes that's just making sure everybody has a great time and you're just talking in a fun and engaging way so they don't want to leave. So you really have to really adapt to your opponents at the end of the day. It's not about talking smack and being negative. That's a very small amount of small percentage of the amount of opponents I play with.
How do you stop people from adapting to playing against you?
I mean, people are always adapting to playing against me. Like, so when I call Garrett out for a mistake he's making with mid-power holdings on the river based on one pot back, basically 1.2x pot. On Doug Polk's podcast, you can be sure that he's going to adjust his game. So it's about being cognizant of the things that have happened and trying to react to their reactions. And poker's so much of a mind game, at the end of the day. And so it's really about being aware of like all your history and all the different things that they think of. I check.
50.
And then based on that, doing the opposite. I mean, poker's about making people do the opposite of what they could do if they could see your cards. And that's always what you're trying to do in this game.
So you just mentioned poker's it's a major mind game. What's the biggest mistake you think poker players make?
There's so many mistakes that poker players make, whether it's playing in games that they don't have the right bankroll for, or whether it's having leaks like alcohol, drugs, and partying, sports betting, whether it's having a girlfriend who doesn't want them to play poker, whether it's not taking the time to really work on their game and get better at it. But I think one of the biggest mistakes that players make on a daily basis in poker is they don't really recognize how their emotions are impacting their game, because it's easy to play solid while you're winning, but they don't make the right adjustments while they're losing. And so things that they would never do in a spot where they're winning, they're starting to do, and they don't even know they're doing it. And that happens every single day.
Do you play table games, or you just stick strictly to poker?
I just play big cash games, like 100, 200 is the bottom side of what I play, up to really 16, 32.
So 100, 200 is like obviously a limit that a lot of people may never play in their lives.
Yeah.
What is the difference between that and the people playing 1, 2, 2, 5 at your local casino?
Surprisingly, the difference is that the way poker works is 2-5 is a pretty soft game. 5-10 has some better players, and 10-20 at the Bellagio, for example, is probably one of the toughest games in the world. And a lot of professional players are winning in that game, but they get stuck, and they can never even play 1-200, even if they have the bankroll, because these are mostly private games. And the reason they can't play in the game is they have nothing to add to the game besides the fact they're a winning player, and the people who organize the games don't want winning players in their games, because that's how they get rec players to play. And so what I'd encourage people to think about is how do you make sure you're always adding value to the game, so I can walk in and play any private game in the world, and I have a positive EV. And that's because of my personality. It's because players like to play with me. I think that my social media fans are definitely engaged. I'm getting somewhere between 100 and 300,000 views every time I post. A lot of comments. I think the way that they interacted with Phil at the World Series of Poker is indicative of like the power of my fan base. So I think that at the end of the day, I don't remember the question, so we have to.
You talk about the way the fans interact with Phil.
Now I do remember. So here's the thing. 10-20 game is probably the hardest game in the world. 100-200 game is more of equivalent of a 5-10. It's full of rec players. They're very soft. They're playing for poker for fun. And so it's very important to understand the motivations of those players and not be perceived as a bully, because you're just not being invited back. And so I think there's this perception when I was growing up and I was putting myself through school playing poker, I thought games just got harder and harder. 10-20 is gonna be hard, 25-50 is gonna be even harder, 1 and 200. 500,000 is probably one of the softest games in the fucking world. And people just don't understand that, And so the question is, how do you get there? And I have a lot of pro players, they can never get in the games I'm playing in.
Why can't they get in those games?
Because the organizers of those games don't think that those players add any value. And all they would do is be a person who's proud of the fact they're GTO, proud of the fact they're a winning player, and would just be trying to bully up, and they push away the rec players who are there to have a good time, and they'd ruin the game. People think being a winning poker player is what it's about. That's where it starts. Being a winning poker, it's so easy to be a winning poker player. Just do a little bit of work, try hard, play really tight, but that will definitely cap your career. And I think that that's one of the things a lot of young players don't think about. They think memorizing cards, understanding starting positions and holdings and trying to be GTO is what's going to make it in life. And they'll be fine, they'll be pros, but they'll never play in the games I'm playing. They'll never play the celebrities I'm playing with. They'll never have the fun I'm having.
You mentioned earlier, like obviously you're a successful poker player, but you used like 10 plus years of being a poker player to get yourself through life. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Well, for me, poker put me through undergrad and law school. I'm always going to be grateful for what poker has done for me in my life and career. And I think so many of the lessons I learned from that game have spilled over into my overall professional and business life. It's definitely an important part of my life even today. And I stepped away for a decade while I was working in casinos and focused on my gaming career. But for me, poker always has a special place in my heart because it paid my bills, it paid my mortgage. I know what it's like to grind. I know what it's like to, I was a 5'10", 7-card stud player, and I had to pay a $700 a month mortgage, and it seemed like so much. And I'd fill a 2-liter bottle up with 50-cent pieces every month. That's how I paid the mortgage. And so I know what it's like to grind, man. And I think that basis of grinding is something that can't be replaced at the end of the day. So you have to struggle, and you have to go broke and lose your bankroll once, and you have to persevere, and you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to realize if you're getting better or not, and you have to force yourself to get better. And when you lose, you can't always just be because, you ran bad. And I think a lot of players they don't even keep records, let alone, know if they're a winning player or not.
Was there a moment in your life that it hit you that life was changing?
Well, for me, I came out of law school, I was working in gaming, and I wouldn't even come back to poker if it wasn't for Corona, probably. I had my own gaming company at that point, and 27 casinos in 3 states, and all of a sudden we're locked down. We can't travel, can't go anywhere. And traveling's been a big part of our life. And so Ann and I, my wife, we would start, playing poker at the Bellagio just to get out of the house. Here we go. What do you got, a pair of 9s? You just can't let it go?
We'll find out, I guess.
I think so. I hope a 9 doesn't flop. Ooh, it's 8. It's awfully close to 9. I want to bet 250.
You got jacks? This is played like a man that has jacks right now. I'll fold. Oh. So right there, talk me through what you just did.
What I just did there is actually, there's a little bit of subtlety to it. I obviously don't have a powerful holding. I know that you didn't triple bet me there, so I don't think you're probably trying to trap me. It's not what I perceive was happening. So I gave you some sort of either mid-range pair or ace-X suited, or just something that's enough to see the flop but abandon most flops. I think that if you had even an ace, I could probably still win that hand because I don't think you could have ace-king or ace-queen in that spot. So I start talking about my hand a little bit, even though it's a weaker hand, because it's what's going to be perceived as strength and induce most folds, even when they flop top pair, which is what you just did.
Yeah, it's brutal. Absolutely brutal.
Not for me.
Not for you, no. So what does your poker career look like moving forward? What are your goals?
The purpose of my poker career at this point is really twofold. One is I'm building a big social media presence, and we're integrating the authenticity of, I'm a gambler, I own casinos. And so my consumer base, I think, responds really positively to the fact that I'm a true gambler. And so we're integrating that into my company. And so, I'm playing in some of the biggest games in the world, and I'm playing with so there's a lot of fun in that, and playing with a lot of celebrities, and obviously a lot of fun in that. And so it's really 2-part. One is to build my company, Maverick Gaming, and 2 is to just go out and have a lot of fun and meet a lot of interesting people. Wreck some souls along the way if we can.
You talk about interesting people. Who are 3 poker players that you would love to play heads up right now?
Heads up is, despite people seeing and getting a lot of views with Phil playing heads up, I'm really a big cash game ring player. And if I were to play heads up with three people, the way I would think about it is Who would I like to play with? I would like to play someone like Phil Ivey for a lot of money. You know, he's a friend of mine. He's obviously a great player, and he's probably better than me. And I just think it'd be fun and kind of challenging. So I don't quite think about it the way a lot of people think about it, because they'd be thinking about where do they have positive EV and like where should I go? I mean, I'd play Phil Hellmuth for the rest of my life, and I'd own his house in like 4 years. I could do that, but like it doesn't seem like a lot of fun, honestly. I know a lot of people would love to see it, and maybe someday it'll happen. I doubt it, and I'd obviously do that if he'd wanted to, you know, as long as it's for enough money that he could feel the pain. But I would be more along the lines of trying to play with people who are really good, so I can maybe get something out of it. So like a Phil Ivey or a Doug Polk, or just some of my friends, man. I'm always down to play with Patrick, you know, and we do that just because it's fun, you know. And I love to play with my boy Maverick. We play pretty much every night.
What's your favorite? Is Hold'em your favorite style of poker? You mentioned stud earlier.
No, I pretty much at this point play exclusively no limit Hold'em. 1, 2, 2, 4, 4, 8, and 500, 1,000 mostly.
So if someone's sitting down to play Texas Hold'em for the first time in a casino, what's one piece of advice you're giving them?
I know it's fun to play every hand, but it's really, really hard to be a winning player if you play every hand. So maybe tone it down a bit. Let's just start there.
It's really solid advice. Would you say you're a top 20 poker player out there?
I think that's a question that is really an impossible question to answer, because let's think about what that means. There's online poker. I don't even play online poker. There's tournament poker. I don't play tournaments. There's heads-up poker, which I think there's a lot of people who are better than me. I think Doug Polk probably the best. But what I play is high limit cash, no limit. High stakes, no limit cash games. And if you think about what it takes to be the best in that, first of all, you have to be allowed to get in the games, which I can pretty much play in any game I want. And then you have to have positive expected value, which I have. So I think that I'm definitely one of the top high stakes, no limit players in the world, for sure. And if anybody wants to disagree, that's fine. And they should just come play with me and let's just settle it out.
Do you play any tournaments?
Not really. Like, I played 2 events this year. One was the Heads Up at World Series of Poker, and I played the main event, and that was just because I thought I'd get some TV time, which I did. So, but no, I'm not a tournament player.
Do you like the added fame that's kind of come around recently?
I did all this for the attention, and it's part of building a brand. And the thing is, what people may not understand is it's authentic. Like, I'm just being me. And so I think that resonates and comes through. And I think that's why my fans are so engaged. And, you know, I pretty much answer every message they send. They go out and they wholeheartedly defend me and cheer me on and pump me up. And so it's a big part of what I'm doing is for that attention. I'm trying to build a brand for Maverick Gaming. So yeah, I want it.
Did you get mostly positive feedback from the Heads Up versus Phil?
I would say it's like 75, 80%. There are some people who are wrong and defend Phil just because they're crazy. But I think all the sane people are on my side. So my determination is 4 out of 5 people in America or the world are sane. The other 20% are Phill Hellmuth fans. All right.
Had to win one hand.
You got it.
Had to win one hand.
At ace-3.
What's your least favorite starting hand that's not 7-deuce offsuit?
Any hand that really can't go somewhere. So like a Jack-3 offsuit or Queen-4, or, you know, I see so many people who get a little wide in their holdings and they start to play a lot of offsuit hands and they flop that top pair. They have a queen and a king with a 6 or whatever, and then they just end up hurting themselves a lot because they don't really know how to play through that hand and play it in a profitable way, and they'd be better off if they just never played it. So for me, you just try to stay away from hands that can't go somewhere. There's no way to tell a great story with a king and a 6. Not really.
Where's one place that you'd like to play poker that you haven't?
I haven't played. Again, this just goes back to a very particular thing. Like, I would like to. I wish I had time to be in Barcelona right now and be hanging out with all my friends at Triton, and I don't. So I haven't done that. But it's not really because it's in Barcelona. It's just because a lot of people I like to hang out with are there, and so for me, I'd like to be wherever my friends are at playing poker. That's probably where I'm happiest.
Do you regret giving Phil the double bird?
No, like, here's the thing, what people don't understand about that hand. It feels like, if you're bluffing so much, show me your hands. And I'm like, here's my hands, motherfucker. Because at the end of the day, that was in jest, and it was in good nature, and it was fun. And he didn't even object to it. He's like, I think he literally said, that'd be funny if I wasn't losing every hand or something like that. But like, no, I don't regret it at all. I think he got what he deserved. I think everything I did was commensurate to the actions he was taking towards me. And I'm not going to be bullied, not by a little guy like him. It's a joke. I eat him for lunch. Like, Phil, seriously? Oh, he's won a bunch of bracelets back in the 90s. Great. This is 2020.
So, I asked you earlier, but do you think the rematch is coming?
I don't think Phil has the balls to put up $1 million of his own money without any backers to play me, because he knows there's a high enough percentage chance that I'll crush him and it would actually hurt. So I don't think so, no. I don't think he'd ever step in and play with me. Not heads up, not for a meaningful amount of money. I would. I'll do it right now.
If you could say one thing to him, what would that be?
You should think about the recreational players and the way you treat them. Forget about the way you talk to a Patrick Antonius or myself, or the people who can handle it. But the rec players are what adds expected value. And when you demean them, and when you make them not have fun, you make them cry, it's just not cool. And it makes a person who might be a lifetime poker player just have a sour taste in their mouth. And they looked up to you, and they wanted to play with you, and they're super happy to be at your table. And then you're just a dick because they took second pair and made 2 pairs somehow and beat you. That's poker, man. And so the thing I tell Phil is, think about the way you talk to your audience and who that audience is, and be smart enough to not turn off people who are just learning to play poker.
Do you think that's something that a lot of poker players, like, everybody makes fun of the fish, like people call people a fish as an insult. So are you saying that that's a mistake?
It's definitely a mistake. And the thing is, the mistake is because and I'll tell you something, in the big cash games I play with, the rec players are the point of the game, and the people organizing the game, they know that. And the rec players are made sure that they have a great time, that they have a lot of entertainment value, that they're having fun, that they want to come back. So the really, really smart people who are making the really, really big games get that. It's just these people in the middle who aren't confident enough in their own abilities, that they have to have outward expressions of anger towards maybe a slightly less skilled player. But they're not that skilled, because if they were, they'd understand you want that guy on the table. If you're really that much better than him, don't do things that'll make him leave. Figure out how to make him stay.
Speaking of skill, how much of poker is skill versus luck?
It's a great question. In the long run, it's all skill. In any given hand, it's all luck. But over the course of a few thousand hours, skill's what wins. This is a game of skill.
What are the most overrated parts about poker play? Like, things people overthink?
I think that, and my guys like Tim Kenyon, who's a GTO player, and he's really solid, and Coco, who's probably the best 10-20 player in the world, I think, at this point, disagree with me. But I think like Ace King is an example of a hand that is entirely misplayed and overplayed, and they're willing to pretty much call all in all the time with that hand, and they're going to say that the charts and computer and everything dictates it. My experience in life is that I like to play after the flop poker, because after the flop poker, there's a lot more stability. There's a lot less variance in your holdings and in your hands, strength. When 5 of the 7 cards are out there, you have a much better understanding where you are before the flop. And So, I play that hand a lot differently. I think you'll see it on No Gamble, No Future. I'm in a very wild game with two really good players, Alan and Hanks. I have ace king. I don't even raise it because I know that they're going to raise it. And so a lot of the people I play with, they would have made a triple bet. And by the way, that would have been a $25,000 raise, and it would have been $100,000 on the turn, and it would have been $250 on the river. And so by doing that, I contain the pot. And then when I flop it, I pretty much get the same value. So I think the biggest split is just the way I think about non-pair hands versus the way some of my GTO friends particularly think about ace king, and we play it entirely different.
I just have a queen.
Queen's good.
So I want to ask you about Maverick Gaming.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to get behind you right now. Like I said, you're a big story, getting some fans. So what is Maverick Gaming, like to those that don't know?
Yeah, so Maverick Gaming is 27 casinos in 3 states, Nevada, Colorado, and Washington. And, we have thousands of hotel rooms, thousands of slots, thousands of table games, and a bunch of restaurants. And it's named after my son, Maverick. And so to me, it's a very important thing. And it's pretty cool to see the amount of hats that people are buying and starting to wear. And the awareness of Maverick is certainly growing pretty fast. And it's a lot of fun to see that, honestly. Maverick wears a Maverick Gaming hat to school and gives it to his friends. It's pretty cool.
What are you most proud of? You said you have multiple casinos. Which one is your favorite?
Look, the favorite's always going to be the Windover Nugget, which is on the Salt Lake City, Utah border in Nevada. It's because it's the first ones we bought, and it does a lot of EBITDA, and it's a big place, and there's a bunch of hotel rooms, and it's what we grew our company out of. So the Windover Nugget's always going to have a soft spot in my heart. All the card rooms in Washington, pretty important to me, just because I grew up in Washington, and it's a lot of fun to go back and spend time there, especially in the summer. But at the end of the day, Windover Nuggets going to always be the casino that made my career. You're running out of green chip.
I know. I'm getting down there. What's the toughest part about owning a casino or running a casino?
Getting the right people, and making sure that people are making great decisions, and making sure that you have the right people in the right place with the right marketing programs, and you have people with good judgment that are managing your business when you're not there. When you have 8,000 employees, you have all kinds of decisions being made every single day. And you got to make sure you have the right people making those decisions for you. And that's the hardest part. It's always people, man. Just like poker.
So for poker, I asked Phil this, but how would you describe poker in one word?
Pain. Poker's about pain. Poker's about giving pain out and taking some pain in. And you have to embrace the pain if you're going to play poker as long as I have. You can go on a big event where we're playing $3,200 straddles, and you can lose $1 million, and it can be viewed by millions of people, and all those millions of people will have opinions on how you should have done things, and you have to stand up the next day and keep playing, So poker is about pain. Anybody says the one word isn't pain, they're wrong. Just the question is if you're giving it out or if you're taking it.
How do you deal with the pain?
You embrace it, and you think about it, and you're honest with yourself, and you think about what you could have done better. And I think all the top players are going to tell you how they do that. 300.
Man. I mean, I know we're running out of time here. I'm all in.
You're all in?
Yeah.
What was the point of saying, I know we're running out of time here?
Well, who knows?
I thought you were bluffing, so I'm going to fold now because I don't think you're bluffing now.
I'm not bluffing. I mean, it's hard when you're the interviewee because you know that I want it to keep going, so it's almost impossible to get value. Couple last questions here. What's the most painful memory you have on pain with poker?
That's easy. So I was a 10-20 limit hold'em player in undergrad, and there was a really good game. It was a 40-80 limit hold'em game, and I took all the money I had and I played that game, and I thought, man, I'm going to crush all these players. I'm so much better than all these players, and there's just no way I'm going to lose. And then I lost. and I had about 60 days until school started. And I literally had $60 to make it until the fall came, when I get a Pell Grant and I get more money to play poker.
I just have threes.
Yeah, threes are good. And so every day I would get up, and Whoppers were 2 Whoppers for $2. And I go buy 2 Whoppers. I get extra everything on them. I eat one, I take one home, and I walk there. And I think about how I lost my bankroll, and I think about how I just got to make it until school starts so I get enough money to start playing again, go back and play 5-10. And I made it, you know, and I don't regret that at all. I think that's a very positive life experience that makes you think about no one game is worth your whole bankroll. And we weren't talking about millions of dollars, we're talking about $10,000. You know, that was everything I had. And so, you know, I think that made me stronger, and it set me up for success in the future.
How long did it take you to get back?
I never went broke again.
What do you think is the number one thing that the poker world needs to get better at? Or what's wrong with the poker community?
I think, just like everything in life, poker's a pendulum, and solvers and PO Solver and GTO is and online poker has been fantastic for the game in terms of introducing new people to the game. And obviously, cryptocurrency was fantastic till it crashed as well. But I think that the thing that everyone has to get better at, the poker world has to get better at, is making sure they're building an environment that encourages lesser skilled recreational players to come play and to have fun and to see this as a game versus a job. And they have to be smart enough to understand that they may see it as a job, but if those people who don't see it as a job, who are just doing this for fun, if they're not having fun, there'll be no game. And that's what you've seen in poker. You've seen, and I've been doing this since 1992. So I've seen it go all the way to the top, come down. World Series last year was second biggest ever. It seems like it's coming back. But there's not as many cash games as there was at the peak. And that's precisely because a lot of the positive EV GTO players came in and they don't add any value to the game at all. They sit there, they have headphones on, they don't engage other players. They don't make sure that people are having a good time. They think that poker's about, you know, oh my God, I'm playing 10 hours today. I'm gonna listen to my headphones and hopefully I just grind out a win. There's no self-awareness. And people have to get way better than that, because if they don't, it'll just continue to decline, because they definitely have a mathematical edge, but that edge is in and of itself is negative for the rec players. So how are they counteracting it? They can maintain their mathematical edge, but they have to make sure the player wants to stay. And a lot of players don't do that. They have to really think about that. It's something I talk to a lot of young players about all the time. Like, what value are you bringing to the game? Why should they let you in the games that I'm playing in? They don't have good answers often. Some of them do. Dylan DeStefano is a gambler. He's a winning player, and people want to play with him. He drinks, he gambles, he jokes around. People like playing with him. It's very important.
Do you think, you had mentioned you don't play online. Is there a reason you don't play online poker?
Besides the fact there's been numerous scams in every single way you want to talk about it, and then also besides the fact that the players who are playing on that at this point are going to have a pretty big edge. My game is human interaction is a big part of my game, and that declines on online space, and so it's not where my strength is. It's not, and I wouldn't enjoy it as much. I like to go into a casino. I like to sit with other players. I like to engage them. I like to talk about hands and playing, and that doesn't happen online. It's a totally different game.
I have 2 questions left. One is, do you think the people that get caught cheating online, obviously that's happened, should they be barred from professional tournaments, or do you think that that's something that the online community just needs to figure out?
I think it depends on what the cheating is, and I think that, but I think cheaters are cheaters, and so there's a lot of arguments for a lot of, in a very general way, that they should not be allowed to play anymore, because I don't think they're good for the game, and I think that people, I'm aware of them when they come to our games, you know, and I'm playing in a regulated place with the cameras and everything, but at the end of the day, they're cheaters, and so I don't think cheaters are adding positive value to the game. So yeah, kick them out, man. And I think if you did that, then what would happen is it might discourage people from doing a lot of the smaller stakes things that they've done, basically. You know, the big scams will still occur, but yeah, it's 30. Must be good.
All right, well, my last question for you is, what would be one thing you want to tell people about you? Like, what's one thing that you would say to anybody?
The one thing I'd say to anybody. That's a good question. Think about that a little bit. If you think that playing poker is easy and it's all glam and it's all a path to like a really successful life, what I'll tell you is poker's a grind, and it's real work, and it's way better to have a big company behind you like I do, and not have that pressure of the daily grind, because I did it with the daily grind. I did it for a decade, and that pressure weighs on you, and people underestimate that, and there's not necessarily a path forward for most of these players. And I think that most of the younger players, they don't regret it and they love it, and there's nothing else they could do to make the same amount of money, but they should be thinking about how they're going to make money when they're not working, and taking those profits and putting them into things that are investments that can ultimately help them become successful later in life when their passion for playing, 70 hours a week wanes. They need to be thinking about the future now. And that's what I'd be telling young poker players who are going out there to grind and win. And I know exactly how it feels. And I can tell you it feels a lot different after 30 years than after 1 year. And you don't always know that in that moment.
And with some fireworks.
I can't get there.
Are you the biggest villain in poker right now?
I think it's the opposite. I'm pretty sure I'm the biggest anti-hero in poker right now. And I think that it's because I'm authentic. It's because I say the things a lot of people are thinking. And I think it's the directness and the authenticity of who I am. And the fact that there's no difference between if I'm playing poker or if I'm just eating lunch with somebody. I'm a pretty straightforward person. And I think it resonates obviously resonates with my fan base, but I think it resonates with a lot of people. Even when they're mad at me, they know it's real. And so I would say it's the opposite. I think I'm the biggest anti-hero in poker. I'm not the biggest villain. I think Phil Hellmuth was the biggest villain.
Biggest villain in poker?
Yeah.
Is there any way he can redeem himself?
No, he's beyond redemption. He's going to his grave as a nit.
Just like me. Just like me. I'll check.
Check. Yeah.
All in.
You hit that king, huh? It's okay. You're going to win this hand.
At ace-4.
It was always good.
All right. Well, thanks so much. This was honestly phenomenal. It got some great stuff. I think the poker community is going to really benefit from it.